Good evening, everyone. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of Topic UFO. Tonight, we're going to be traveling back in time, I guess you could say, to the Lost Continent of Atlantis. There's been, I heard something on TV just last night that more has been written about the lost city of Atlantis than any other subject ever written about. I found that just amazing. So tonight, we're going to talk about it ourselves. Our guest is Branda Blakley, and she has written a book entitled The Book of the Awakening. And she has been into the paranormal from an early age. She's been investigating this type of thing for a long, long time. So it should be a very interesting conversation. So why don't we just go ahead and bring her on? Branda, are you out there?
Hello.
Hello, Branda. How are you tonight?
Oh, wonderful.
Great, great. Well, thanks for coming on the show and telling us about your studies and now this book. So, what got you interested, number one, into this whole lost city of Atlantis or lost continent?
Well, I mean, at an early age, I couldn't really read like Plato or any kind of writings like that, but the earliest writings that I read was Jules Verne.
Ah.
And Jules Verne always has that way of drawing you in to getting you to thinking about stuff. So that was my first taste of Atlantis.
Now, if you talk to people, the rank and file people of the world, of course, some say Atlantis was a mythical city. Others say that, no, it really, truly existed. What is your thought? Do you think
the
that
evidence can basically be found in the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, if you look at everything that's being discovered around Cuba, the Straits of Florida, even in Louisiana at this point, and the things that's been discovered even in Mexico, scientists have kind of been baffled. What happened to the Mayans? What happened to all these other civilizations? Well, they all date around the same time, even at the same time as the flood of Noah.
Really? I did not know that. So
it's roughly about 10,000 years. I mean, if you look at everything together and just paint a bigger picture than just looking at one study versus another study.
So now, because the show is called Topic UFO, I've got to ask you, was Atlantis supposedly populated by an alien race, or were they human?
I believe that aliens and humans both coexisted at the same time, roughly before 10,000 years ago.
Right. And now some people will say that, that couldn't be, but as we've talked about before, Branda, the more searching it seems they do underwater in the depths of our ocean, they are coming up with evidence that shows humanity is much older than we ever thought. Would you agree?
Well, not only just humanity older than what they previously thought, but there was many races, many different types of humans back then. You have pygmy skeletons, you have giant skeletons, you have skeletons with horns, 2 horns, 1 horn. You just have weird-looking skeletons all over the world. I mean, how can anybody dismiss the discoveries that they've made?
Well, you had sent me a number of photographs in getting ready for tonight's show, and I was surprised to see a photo of Joe Taylor. Joe Taylor was a guest on the show some time ago, and he's very much into this giant skeleton type of
Right.
research. And my question regarding that, I've seen the pictures. If this was true, if this was really true, wouldn't there be more museums that housed all of these giant skeletons? Because some of these photos show extremely large skeletons. And where are they finding these skeletons? Are they all over or what?
Well, I mean, they've been discovering giant skeletons all over the world since even the 1600s. But every time that there seems to be any evidence that pops up in like a local museum or even a private collector, the Smithsonian will find some way of getting that object.
Really? Wow. I did not know that.
I mean, any time that you're researching, you will not find hardly anything about any of the paranormal, the giants, the horned skeletons, or anything in the paperwork of the Smithsonian Institute. But every one of these museums have proof that the Smithsonian has them.
Wow. Wow.
Now, I think that's another kind of conspiracy that a lot of people hasn't looked at. You know, they've got miles and miles under their museums. It's nothing but archives.
Right.
That nobody ever gets to see. It's not like you can get a pass for it or anything like that.
Oh, I'm sure they have things there that are not open to the general public. God only knows what they have down there.
Well, I have a couple of friends from the Louisiana archaeology department, and they've been denied access several times.
Is that right?
They don't let many people in there, and if they do, it's something that usually doesn't matter if, it comes out that it's true.
Kind of reminds me of the catacombs of the Vatican or something like that,
Exactly. I mean, it's huge. I mean, the pictures that show, like, before it was built, the big holes, I mean, it's just massive.
Now getting back to the actual book that you've written, what is the book about? Well, I mean, it's about the Lost Continent of Atlantis, but what is involved in the book?
The first chapter, I start out with, even from the writings of Plato all the way down to the most recent theories. But my second chapter, I talk about our ancient ancestors, the Anunnaki. You have the blue people, you have the moon people, you have the legends, that was passed down to the Indians that, they were blonde hair, blue-eyed, but they were Indians. I talk about many of the different races of aliens in another chapter, which my nephew actually helped me with. He's kind of a young version of a conspiracy theorist.
But he's also had some crazy dream type stuff as well, right? I believe you said.
He seems to have a lot of very vivid alien type of dreams, where it shows aliens like on their home planet and what they look like, and he'll tell us the names, and it's just really fascinating. I just don't really know if, surely it's not made up, but the details that he goes into, like, their behaviors and their colors and what they do on their planet and how their planet atmosphere is. It's not normal stories that a normal child would just make up.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like something an adult would make up, getting to that
That's
level
why
of...
I felt it, since, that's my nephew, to include his work also in my book. And then I also talk about all of the volcanoes that's actually in America. I mean, there are hundreds, more than any other country in the world.
Is that right?
But we're not ever taught that in school. I mean, I was amazed, and I've always been a little bit of a history buff, and I never knew that there was so many volcanoes.
Well, of course, I'm sure most people have heard about, the amount of volcanic activity under Yellowstone National Park.
Right. And everybody knows about the fault lines, and we even here in Arkansas have, a little bit of earthquakes now and then. But these, if they rupture, you're talking about a total doomsday reality, because they can go off just one by one like dominoes.
Right, right.
And in the Gulf of Mexico, we actually have the only known volcano that actually spews asphalt instead of lava.
And what does that mean? What is the significance of that?
It's an asphalt type of material like you would find on our roads. It's nowhere near even close to being the same consistency or the same material as a normal volcano.
Like either lava or magna or whatever they call it, huh?
Right.
And where's this located?
It's just south of where the Yucatan Peninsula is.
Oh, okay.
It's about 100 meters or so off of where the old coastline is. If you look like on Google Maps, you can kind of see where it is in the ocean.
Oh, okay. So it's in the ocean. It's underwater.
Yes.
So, your book, it under the description of it, which, by the way, the book is available on lulu.com, and we'll get into that more later. But in the description, it says, if you love history, the Bible, and learning the truth, this book is for you. So, obviously, are you saying that the lost city of Atlantis has some biblical or religious ties to it?
Well, in order to learn so we make our future better, we have to know the truth about our past.
Yeah.
And if we're basing everything on a false truth, then we're just going to be repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again.
I would agree with that. So, but as far as biblically speaking, what are the what is the information biblically?
The reference that I give, I think that the Bible is more. It should be looked more as a history guide, because these people were writing down what they were seeing. They weren't writing down just stories. And, the Bible has so many cities that they write about, but
that are no longer here?
Right, but a lot of them have small references to, like Egypt fighting countries to the west.
Right.
It's just small references here and there versus like the Bible talks about the giants and stuff. There's not as much reference in the Bible to Atlantis as it is to the different creatures and stuff that were here.
I gotcha. So what, as far as you're concerned, what was the story behind Atlantis? Why was it created? Who created it? And where did it go? I guess are the big three questions.
I think that when they formed Atlantis, it was kind of the same way than when they formed America. They were fleeing to become a better state. They wanted a different life than what they previously had.
Ah, okay. So these inhabitants came from other places already here on Earth.
Right.
Okay.
Well, the majority of them. you had the humans, you have the hybrids, and you have the aliens. And you have all of them intermixing together.
Gotcha. Now, I've heard another analogy, I guess you would say, or description, that possibly Atlantis wasn't really a city, terra firma type of city, but was actually a giant mothership, and it didn't get flooded. It took off. It went somewhere else. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, that theory makes sense when you look at it from major buildings like what is described as being in Atlantis. They'll find, a few stones here, a few stones there, but no massive buildings of any kind anywhere in the world.
And supposedly,
to describe what Atlantis had, versus they could have landing spots for the ships.
Right. And the fact that
but
it was circular.
The foundations have been found all over the place in the Gulf, but the main structures haven't. And I don't think that would even go away with the hurricanes that we've had.
So you believe that Atlantis resided in the Gulf of Mexico?
Right. I believe that the southern states of the United States, from Florida all the way around through Texas, Mexico, Yucatan, Cuba, Canary Islands, Bahamas, Bermuda Islands, they were all closer together than they were today. And I believe that whole area was the Lost Continent of Atlantis.
Ah, okay.
I believe that the capital of Atlantis was the city of Cleto, which was Poseidon's wife. I believe that resides in Plaquemines Pine, Louisiana.
Really?
And the city of Poseidon fits the description of Poverty Point, Louisiana. And the city of Atlantis fits perfectly in the city that they found just to the northeast of where Cuba is, and to the Florida Straits. But, I mean, the more that we're in the ocean, the more that we're going to be discovering.
And that's something I absolutely, positively agree with you on. I think, there are so many answers just laying there underwater.
Well, I mean, if we look at one example that our ancestors has taught us, don't build so close to the coast.
Yeah. But we continue to do it.
Number one example right there.
We continue to do it.
I mean, we're in a warming cycle in the Earth. The polar ice caps is going to keep on melting.
Right.
So the water levels are going to keep on rising. That's just not a good idea.
I don't think a lot of people worry about it, probably because they don't think it'll happen in their lifetime. But, if we do continue some type of warming trend, Florida would be the first to go. I mean, it wouldn't take much for Florida to completely disappear.
Florida, the Canary Islands, you've got Cuba, you've got the Bahamas, and you've got the whole end of the Yucatan Peninsula, Louisiana, some of Mississippi. I mean, Texas, they're all underwater.
Now, back to what happened to Atlantis. I believe Plato described that it was demolished in overnight, a day and a night, or something like that.
Right, in a single day and night.
Right. Now, that's pretty significant. Perhaps maybe it could have been an earthquake. I don't know. Is there any other information about from Plato's point of view as far as how the demise of it, or does he just say it destroyed?
Well, I mean, there was like three things. There was like big rumbles. There was like smoke in the sky. There was fire in the sky. There's evidence in Mexico that, volcanoes had erupted around that time. But also what was going on was that all this water was coming in to this inner ocean across land. Well, you put enough pressure on land and it's going to buckle.
I gotcha.
And I believe that the Caribbean Sea is proof that that whole plateau just collapsed. The little tie, the little road in between where the Yucatan Peninsula was or is and Cuba is, there was a little stretch of land in between that, and that's been demolished also. And I think that if there was a collapse of land, there could have possibly been a mega tsunami. And there has been shown proof that even after we've had all these hurricanes and stuff, that there was quite a bit of water damage along the coastlines that were a lot older than what they previously thought around the salt dumps.
I definitely think they're going to find that their estimates on age of humanity are going to be way wrong. I just have a feeling.
Yes, I believe it's going to be in the millions and millions of years.
It very well could be. It very well could be.
Maybe not in exactly our form, but at some form. They were here millions of years ago.
Right, exactly. Now, earlier you were saying that Atlantis was the home for not just humans, but hybrids and alien beings. Can you talk a little bit more about that? What has your research shown as far as the alien
well, I mean,
beings?
if you look at from the biblical text, they talked about all these different kind of creatures. Well, and then you take all these other texts that's been labeled as nonfiction and you mix it in with the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got quite a bit of species that were intermingling before the Great Flood.
And can you give us an example of what type of ancient animals there were? Or you feel there were?
Well, I mean, at the time you had giant sloths, ground sloths. You actually had elephants here in the United States. They were hairy, but they were elephants. You had mastodons. You had different kind of, not really snake-like, but not really reptilian, like a lizard either. But they were similar. But they had more of a human feature. Those have been described. There's been creatures that's been discovered that have two horns, almost like a horse.
Now, I have seen, you had sent me some pictures of what appeared to be human-looking skulls with either one or two horns. What is that all about?
Those have actually been discovered here in America and in Africa, and they're usually found in groups. They've never found them like one here, one there. They're usually in a group, like a burial plot. But little is known about them because at the time where they were being found, there was no DNA testing available. Well, the only one that's still remaining is in a museum, and the London Museum has it, and they're not willing to do DNA testing on it.
So, if the Lost Continent of Atlantis could be scientifically proven, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that it actually did exist, what implications would that have on other things?
It would be astonishing to the field of research, because they've always said, this is black and white, this is the way it is, there's no more to be discovered, and clearly that's not the case.
Right. Right. So do you feel that these alien...
It would,
oh, go ahead.
It would definitely set off a domino effect, though. I mean, if people realize that they were lied about that, then what more has our governments and our religious organizations lied to us about?
So you feel that the truth is already known, that it does exist, and that it has been kept a secret from the masses.
I think that our ancestors, when they came over from England, I think they knew exactly where they were going.
Well, listen, Branda, we have come to the end of our discussion for tonight. I wanted to let the folks know, again, the book is called The Book of the Awakening, and you can find it on lulu.com, LULU.com. When did the book come out, by the way? Did it come out just recently?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks
perfect.
ago.
Perfect. Well,
so I'm just now making my rounds talking about it.
Absolutely. That's something you got to do. I mean, we're never going to solve these questions if we're not willing to at least talk about them, right?
Right. It doesn't matter if you believe or not, at least you're thinking.
That's right. That's right. Keep the mind open. Well, listen, Branda, it's been a very interesting conversation.
It's been wonderful.
I heard things tonight that I never had heard before, to be honest with you. That's not a big thing, but it's very, how should I say, fresh to talk to somebody that has information that is new. I tell you, I'm going to be reading this book, and I will definitely stay in touch with you. And if I have some questions, I might reach out to you. Can people reach out to you anywhere on the internet besides this lulu.com?
Absolutely. I've got Branda Blakley, Branda J. Blakley, and The Awakening 2013, all on Facebook.
All on Facebook. Okay, well, we'll have those URLs up. Reach out to Branda if you have any questions, and I'm sure she'll be more than happy to help you. So, Branda, thanks again for doing the show. It was nice having you on, and we'll stay in touch.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, Branda. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Good night.
The answer is to keep it. You believe it when you